People, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning in. Now, a certain newspaper, I don't want to give them publicity because they're quite scummy, has obviously made claim that 4 Arsenal players, and before I continue, it's important, while this doesn't deflect from the fact that they're not following guidelines, one of the incidences didn't happen yesterday. Allegedly, long story short, Nicolas Pepe, David Luiz, Lacazette, and I believe Granit Xhaka, for a variety of reasons, have been, condemned for breaching the guidelines. And obviously, as professional footballers, they shouldn't do it. They're not the first. They're not going to be the last. Wrong is wrong. Nobody should be doing it. We've had footballers hosting explicit romps in their house. We've had footballers drunk, captains of clubs that are fighting relegations, drunk crashing cars. We've had Aurier, repeat offender now, always caught. We've had a manager trying to, in Jose, trying to do training sessions with Sessegnon and all these guys. It's a bit mad. In relation to Nicolas Pepe, he's been spotted, I guess, nearby his house in Collindale, in a cage doing, playing football. And he's an impressionable person and obviously shouldn't be doing that. I'm not going to lie, people. I'm really not going to lie. It's not the first time I've heard this. It's not the first time. Someone actually DM'd me and showed me, and not this one, but a couple of times. And I'd say Pepe, he wants to play football. And I'd say Pepe needs to be serious. The one in the newspaper is with a lot of friends. Again, I don't know Pepe's living conditions, but I know based on his Instagram, there's quite a few people always in his house. I don't know if they live there or not, if they're cousins or family. I'd say he needs to really think about what he's doing, because they can breach it and wrong is wrong and right is right, like I said. But if you do it, it's going to be you all over the headlines, and especially where it's not really relevant, but you're Nicolas Pepe, you've been spent for 70 odd million, and I don't think your season's been as bad as people have projected, and you've definitely not been as terrible. The statistics show that, but you've not been as good as potentially a lot of people, myself included, thought. And he's of the age now where he needs to decide, do I want to give my life to football? In a sense of, you can do as much as things as you want outside of football, but again, are the council and the people you've got around you really got your best interest? Because, again, I'm not saying again, me, I find it annoying that people say someone like Hector Bellerin isn't dedicated to football because he's speaking about global causes. What he does off the field is irrelevant, but he needs to ask himself, do these people have my best interest in heart? Football needs to be the first thing that's on his mind. Ironically, it is, but I think he needs to be a bit more professional. And again, obviously, it looks like a lot of people live with him, which is good because he's a young man. He's come from France to London. He needs people to help him settle in. But again, you need to give your life to football. Could it be worth, getting rid of these sort of people around you? Only Pepe can answer that. In relation to Granit Xhaka and David Luiz, allegedly they were seen having a kickabout or whatever near Oakwood Station, which, I'm from Everton/Tottenham and things, and there used to be a lot of parties there. Let's just say that's a very rich area, and you had a lot of rich kids, which provided a lot of opportunities for people that didn't have much funds, and you had a lot of rich girls as well, which obviously 2 birds, 1 stone. But people, allegedly, Xhaka and Luiz have been spotted having a get together. And it was Luiz's birthday yesterday, I believe. Happy belated, Luiz. From my actual work in my private life, people, I know David Luiz is a very loved person, and at Chelsea he had a big, massive fancy dress party, and you can imagine he probably would have done the same, and he is very much a sociable guy. So there's that. In relation to Lacazette, I can't lie, I think they're just getting on to Lacazette for no reason. Like, he's literally just got someone on his driveway cleaning his car. Yes, he could clean his car himself, but come on now, like, he's in his yard. Like, they're just trying to kill him. And again, I'll read it all out, but somebody said, why can't normal people do that? And I mean, what kind of nonsense? Why can't you clean your own car? And that makes sense. But I mean, it doesn't, there's some car washes that are still open. My guy was on Snapchat getting his car washed at the car wash. So what are you talking about? Obviously, he's Lacazette. He can get personal people to come and look after his things, but there's nothing wrong with that. This is all ridiculous. But in fact, let me get back to this, people. Apparently, a dog walker who saw Luiz and Xhaka said they were having a great time, not a care in the world. Why is it one rule for them and another for the rest of us? And that's the logic I don't like. That's the rhetoric I don't like. You know, they have to hold their hands up. They should be in their yards, or they should be social distancing, or they shouldn't be out unnecessarily. Definitely. But one rule for one and one rule for the other. These are two people that have come from Brazil, and you all know Xhaka's, well, one's from Brazil, and Xhaka's family have at a time fled war-torn zones. They're very humble. They've done a lot for charity. They definitely would take offence if you said there's one rule for them and the others. And it's not. Wrong is wrong. But by the same logic, I know these lot of footballers, but it's not just that, and I'm not defending anybody because everybody's in the wrong, but you've seen people still going to London fields as like the day's hot right now. Go through your local park. There's not people not practicing social distancing. I don't know what 420 is, but I hear that it's a favoured day for certain people. I don't know anything about it, but I did hear a lot of people were flocking to Hyde Park. So it's clearly not one rule. It's idiots are being idiots. People in general in this country have an issue with just following orders, and this is why we're in the issues we are. And I'm seeing in America people are protesting the lockdown. I mean, are you an idiot or you're an idiot? But that's what I didn't like, people. He said, why couldn't Lacazette... And then someone who spotted Lacazette getting his car cleaned on Monday said, I was shocked to see them so close. Surely getting someone to clean your motor cannot be classified as essential travel. Why couldn't Lacazette have done it himself? You know, he could have done it himself, but he's within his rights. If the company is still open, or whoever is still open, rightly or wrongly, he's within his rights. Again, social distancing should be a case, people. Well, it is what it is, and players in general, obviously, they're probably finding it hard. You saw Declan Rice as well a few weeks ago, with Mason Mount. Rightly or wrongly, they have to hold their hands up. For what it's worth, though, for what it's worth, the newspapers that word for word said, sorry, people, I had a tongue twist there. David Luiz and Xhaka were also spotted having a get together on Parkland in Southgate. Lacazette was snapped standing next to a car valeter cleaning his Audi on his driveway. Nicolas Pepe was seen with friends having a kickabout, and for Pepe it's probably worse because you could see WhatsApp and Snapchat images of him doing such in his tracksuit. This happened on the 15th of April in Colindale, which I believe Graham Park in Colindale. Don't really know too much about them sides there. Police later closed the pitch following complaints. Again, this was on the 15th of April, and again, this isn't new. This is something a lot of people have known about, but it's become public. Allegedly, an Arsenal spokesperson speaking to this newspaper said, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll be speaking to our players. We were concerned, so we have spoken to Nicholas, who shares a house with a number of relatives who were involved in this game. We have reminded him of the importance of everyone following the guidelines." Again, Pepe's got to be sensible. And I'd say, listen, I don't really, it's more Luiz, Xhaka and Pepe, really. I don't really have much for Lacazette, but I'd say for players in general and people that haven't been seen, it's common sense. For Arsenal, we should have better common sense, because I'm not saying Arteta's diagnosis saved lives, but Arteta and Callum Hudson-Odoi, if they didn't get it or it didn't become public knowledge, I think more players or more fans would have suffered, because football had a laxed approach. Literally, I think a fair few amount of lives have been saved because of this, and we know firsthand if our manager's gone through it, and Arteta's probably detailed what he was going through, what he felt like exactly in that moment, how it felt, and we all know this isn't a joke. I don't think the players are taking this lightly, but they need to remember these sort of things, and they need to remember the guidelines they've got. There's people that look up to Nicolas Pepe. There's people that, and things like that. I don't think footballers should always live lives for other people, but they've got responsibilities. And whether you believe it's not that deep or not, you've given the opportunity for these newspapers to sell a story. And in this case, this newspaper journalist who works for this sorry excuse of a paper, you've given him an opportunity in a climate where there's not much going on to pay his bills and sell some papers, people. Which shouldn't be the case. Should not be the case. Is what it is in that regards, though, people. But away from that, and final word on the transfer front. Amir Rahmani, I can't say his name, but I'm so sure I can't say the name. He plays for Verona. I'm so sure he moved there recent. Apparently Arsenal have looked at him. Again, I don't know too much about him, but the things that stand out to me is you could see potentially why he is a sort of old school defender. He likes to defend. He is physically quite strong and likes to make no secret of the fact that he's quite strong physically. ball playing, I'm not too sure if it's currently of a top 6 standard or if it's there really, but I don't watch him religiously and I'm not clued up on him. But he's been linked with Arsenal, and you know, it keeps up the theme with the Upamecano's, there's many names, the Upamecano's, the Ivan Ndikas, the Diassi's, the Jonathan Tah. There's many different defensive centre-half people we've been linked with, and he carries that on. In relation to his agent, maybe a bit of this is to get better. What's the word, people? I'm looking for. Get better offers, or he might be in talks of a renewal because he has had a good season so far in Serie A prior to it being stopped. They might be in talks of a renewal. There might be legitimate interest, but his agent, Adrian Aligia, I believe, has said Arsenal have watched him as they have done with other players who play in the Italian Championship. Now, again, you name drop Arsenal. That might make the advisors that you're in negotiations with drop a few zeros. That might make other teams up their prices and things like that. And to be fair, Arsenal probably have watched him. Like, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if you used to look at a list of scouts at these games or at a game he's played in, if it said Arsenal, PSG, United and things, people just what, because a lot of the scouts are not looking to sign these players. They're just there, so one, they don't miss out. There's always the fear of missing out. Two, it's just you might be looking at other players. Three, it's just about staying in the loop, staying what's going on, keeping track of progress, because one day he might improve to the standard where it's time to move, and you've done your due diligence and continued due diligence. So just because somebody's watched a player doesn't mean we're in for him, people. And I'm sure you all saw yesterday, folks, as well, Thomas Partey, you all saw the comments in relation to his father wanting his son to come to Arsenal, or at least declared that publicly. His agent has more or less said, people, that, you know, talks that we're negotiating are untrue, but they're also, he said that in Marsa, he said it's totally untrue that we are negotiating with Arsenal, but there's also been conflicting reports, despite what's been said with the agent publicly, that there's still negotiations, that there has been talks. So like I said in my previous vid, until the man's holding an Arsenal shirt, or I see, you know, major, not that major news publications find out about it first, but they kind of have to be right, or get the credible news and stuff like that. Until I see him driving in for his medical or holding the shirt, it's all was. I would love Partey, but again, I don't like to get my heart caught up in these things, people. Moving away from that though, folks, Soccer Link has said Arsenal are in the market for a defensive midfielder, and we're again keeping track of Samore of Lille, which, like his teammate Gabriel, could be subject to interest by a couple of clubs and could be sold for a profit. And I mean, you look at Lille's model, they're about to get Elagi from Marseille on a free transfer to wide man. They got Gabriel for pennies. They signed my man from PSG, I assume, for a similar fee. And, you know, they're going to make some serious bank on these players. So we'll see what happens in that regards, people. In relation to Upamecano, apparently Arsenal are among the clubs to have made interest in Upamecano known. However, Bayern Munich are the only side to have made a concrete approach. The player has no intention of joining a big club, only to be third or fourth choice, and has a valuation of 60 million euros, which obviously with his contract and the current climate probably drops to 30-40 in my opinion. You know, he's got, you know, I back him to play at Bayern Munich. I back him, and you know, if you sign for Bayern Munich, you got to be prepared to fight. You have to be prepared to fight. You have to be prepared for two man fighting for you and someone else, two players each fighting for a position, sometimes even three. But you know, you don't want to go and not play football anymore. Why would you want to give that up, people? So at least that's what Arsenal might not have Champions League, but that's one thing we could give him. To be fair, I don't think he wouldn't. There's not too many teams he's been linked with. I think he wouldn't be first choice. If I was him, I'd back myself to be first choice. He's been linked with PSG, been linked with Bayern Munich. Definitely should back himself at Arsenal and United, two teams he's been linked with. Also linked with City, definitely. So I don't think there's many teams, again off the top of my head, that he can't. I wouldn't think I can fight for a space. But if he wants guaranteed assurances that I'm a starter, then that's a different story in itself. But apparently another report by Foot Mercato has said, despite interest from several European top clubs, Upamecano prefers to stay in Germany and join Bayern Munich. Upamecano has already asked the French players at Munich about the club. Kingsley Coman particularly would love for Upamecano to join him at Bayern. So we'll see how that one goes, people. You know, just as long as Arsenal get a centre-half, I'm cool. Back to what I was saying about how I thought Arteta's thing saved people's life, people. Apparently, and I've just got one segment from him. He said, DJ Roland Kiao, who obviously works for the University of Edinburgh, spoke to PA News, and he said that Mikel Arteta's corona diagnosis might have helped save lives, as 45 matches across the PL and EFL that were scheduled to take place that weekend got cancelled as a result. So yeah, man, and I do think football would have had a lot of blood in their hands, because we did have not we, because I'm not part of it, but there was a laxed approach to this virus in comparison to society in general and actually other sports. And you've seen Rooney, you've seen, Ogbonna of West Ham, Rooney of Derby have both condemned that, and there's been a couple other players. Finally, in relation to Gabriel Martinelli, apparently he was called up to the Brazil under-23s last year for a pre-Olympic tournament, but Edu Gasper blocked the move despite the player's desire to go, as Arsenal consider Martinelli to be an essential player to their squad. And obviously, I assume it was last summer, he was just moving to Arsenal, and considering it's, a new country, new players, he's still an inexperienced player. I would have loved for him to have played at that, but he needed to settle in. He needed to get to way of life, and it was pre-season and whatnot. And it's happened. He will get a call up to Brazil in some capacity one day, in my opinion, if he doesn't choose Italy. But it will happen. So good call, Edu. But Martinelli himself, in relation to the national team, he said, Julio Paulista already called me, spoke to me and congratulated me on what I'm doing. I haven't been called up yet, but I'm very calm about that. And, Martinelli's a smart man. I'll never speak for someone else, but you can imagine he knows that all I have to do is continue what I'm doing at Arsenal, not get too big-headed, keep the same hunger, keep playing, ultimately scoring goals and getting assists and affecting the game. Everything else takes care of itself, because, as you speak to some Brazilian national newspapers and some people in Brazil, they want Martinelli in that side. The only opinion that matters is the immediate Brazil head coach, but he'll get there soon. There'll be a time where he can't ignore him, but it's quite a rise from Martinelli being a relative unknown to being spoken of going to Real Madrid and Barcelona after failed trials at Barca and Man United, ironically, being sold for mad money, being spoken of as a potential world-class player in the future, as an Arsenal legend, should get a Brazil call up. I mean, it's quite the rise. And, right now, he's, like I've said with Martinelli, it's the honeymoon period. Everybody loves it. There's not too many expectations, but there's going to come a time the same people that are showing this energy to love him are going to condemn him, because he's a young man. Life isn't easy. I'm not going to say everything's been easy for him at Arsenal, because we don't know, but everything seems to be with ease. There's going to be times he's going in bad form, times he's starting and he shouldn't be, times it becomes evidently apparent that he's an 18-year-old footballer. And again, maybe if he didn't, I think it's a good thing he had this rise, definitely, this impact, because not many people expected it. But time remains to be seen if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because it's like with Saka, Guendouzi, and now him, people forget that these lot are young players. Of course, that's testament to them, but they're going to have bad games, and rightly or wrongly, that's something that's going to be there, people. So we'll have to deal with that. I've got nothing more to add, so I'm going to get out of it, though. On that note, it's always a pleasure. DG, I'm out.